I'm Dr. Amanda Morris, and I'm really excited to be able to host this webinar with ISSBD and the Child and Family Global Outreach. We're really excited to have Dr. Eva Lau and Dr. Lixian Cui talking to us today about disseminating research and to teachers, to media, and beyond. And Dr. Lau is from University of Hong Kong, and Lixian Cui is from NYU Shanghai. And I encourage everyone to please say where you're from in the chat and say hello in the chat, ask questions in the chat. If you would like to turn on your camera, feel free to do so, but I know many people, it's always a challenge depending on your internet capabilities. So it's if you want to, you can. If you can, you're welcome to do so. But please use the chat. And we are planning, Eva is going to start, and then we'll turn it over to Lixian, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions and discussion at the end. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Eva.
Thank you very much, Amanda, for the introduction. And hi, everyone. I will just keep my introduction very short because I probably won't have enough time to go through all my slides. So this is Eva again from the Education University of Hong Kong. My research expertise lies in how parenting influences children's development across different developmental transitions. So I'm very pleased to share my experience in disseminating the findings of my research and my efforts to translate these findings into real-world impact with you today. So thank you very much for the invitation and opportunity to share. So in my sharing today, I will focus on examples of research dissemination related to one of my major research themes, which is parental involvement and school readiness. So overall, from my research, what I found basically was that when parents are more involved in supporting children's home learning activities, children tend to be more ready for primary school and show better subsequent adjustment. So with these findings in mind and the specific home learning activities that were found to predict school readiness, and also considering the context of school transition in Hong Kong, I have widely disseminated my findings beyond the academic community through channels such as public talks, training and workshops for teachers and parents. I have also engaged with the media to share my findings. And with these efforts, I received invitations and funding to further develop resources that directly benefit children and their families. So in this sharing, I'll be using the projects that you see right now as examples to illustrate some tips for dissemination and to give you an overview and to have some understanding of what these are. On the top left, you are seeing a territory-wide donation project on school transition, where we freely distribute the school transition toolkit box sets to all year 1 and year 2 primary school students in Hong Kong. And together we produce 350,000 box sets during those periods. And then on the top right, this is a school transition activity book that I wrote and was published by a commercial publisher for purchase in major bookstores in Hong Kong. And then on the bottom left, this is a video-based, parent-child training program on executive functions. And this is a free app that, parents can download and use. And then finally, on the bottom right, this is a resource pack designed to reduce aggressive behaviors in preschoolers by promoting positive social and emotional skills. Oops. So now I would like to take a moment to emphasize why it matters to get the word out and how it can help us get funding. Because first of all, in my area of research, many evidence-based parenting and involvement strategies never reach real families. They stay in journals. And as a result of that, what we know from research often doesn't translate into support that children and families can actually access. And then secondly, for school readiness, it is shaped by what happens at home and also by how families connect with schools during the transition process. But many parents and even schools may not know which home activities and which forms of parent-child or parent-teacher communication actually make a measurable difference. So without dissemination, the readiness gap could persist. And that's where the third point comes in. Dissemination is the bridge between research findings and real benefit for children. When we share our findings through the right channels, we increase the chances that families can use what works. And finally, our outreach helps identify real gaps and show funders exactly what is missing, who needs support, and why the work is urgent and high impact. Making it easier, really to justify investment and attract more funding support. So I will elaborate on this a little bit more later. So after knowing the importance of dissemination, we need to bear in mind that we should translate our research into messages. Because not all stakeholders understand what we are talking about when we are communicating about findings. Your research findings can be very straightforward as mine. So basically what I found from my previous research is that, in the blue box, parental involvement predicted children's readiness for primary school. This is quite straightforward and simple. But this message is not an easy to understand message, and it is not practical either. So I would suggest that a better approach is to share the message by describing the key finding in layman terms and explain so what for parents and teachers. What does it mean practically for them? So the example on the bottom is a better example. When parents engage in high quality parent-child activities such as reading together, playing board games, and having interactive conversations, children are more ready for school as reflected in better school liking, stronger cognitive skills, and more positive social behavior. So in this message, what the finding means, it's more clear to parents and teachers. And we also include, some of the strategies or practices that can actually help children. So once we have our message ready, we also need to consider who do we get the word out to, because different audiences require different channels and different levels of detail. So for teachers and schools, dissemination should involve implementation-ready strategies. Because clear suggestions about what to do, when to do, and how to do will really help them to realize these practices in the real settings without too much additional efforts. And for parents and caregivers, we need to provide simple, actionable, and culturally relevant messages so that they know the things they can do without feeling overwhelmed. For the media and the public, we need clear narratives backed by evidence to help people understand why the issue matters, what works, and how it can make a difference for children. And finally, for policymakers and funders, we should frame our work in terms of impact pathways, scalability, and cost effectiveness, so that they can see not only the approach works, but also how it can be expanded and sustained. So in the following, I would like to show you some examples of what I found works in my experience for teachers, for parents, and in the media. So for teacher-facing outputs, I previously suggested that they should be implementation ready, right? So that we can increase teachers' motivation to implement. So here are some examples of what I did. Very often, I developed toolkits for teachers that they can use directly in their teaching. So on the left-hand side, this is an activity for promoting children's emotional understanding through an emotion wheel. And we basically provide the material in the middle of this slide in the pack for teachers to use directly. So they don't have to, look for resources. They can just, cut and paste the child's pictures on the wheel and use it in their class. And on the right is a poster we provide to help teachers better illustrate the steps needed for emotional regulation during their teaching. So other than teaching, teachers can also post it in the classroom as a visual reminder for students after their teaching. And then activity templates. I also developed activity templates for teachers to engage children in class and help them become familiar with the primary school setting and routines. So on the left-hand side, it's a activity sheet for learning about different locations in the primary school. The middle one, it's a lesson timetable. On the right-hand side, it's a lunch order form. So teachers can easily use these templates in their class. So all these examples came from the activity book that I published. And many schools would purchase it and directly use it as part of their school transition curriculum or adapt it depending on students' interests and their teaching needs. And my last tip for teacher-facing outputs is that in my teacher training and workshops, I allocate a significant amount of time for interactive hands-on activities. So the pictures that you see right now is a training that I conducted in Singapore for principals and teachers. So during that particular workshop, after explaining my findings related to the importance of executive functions, I demonstrate some executive function games that they can use in their class, and then I ask them to design similar games on their own. So the games they learned and the games that they designed can then be directly used in their teaching. So overall, because these materials are quite handy and visually attractive and fun, teachers are more likely to try them out in their classroom. And then for parent facing for parent facing outputs. For parents, you need to make sure that your information is short and digestible because they are very busy, as we all know. We should assume that they may not have time and patience to listen to a long talk or read a long article, especially in today's AI-driven environment. So with that in mind, I developed videos to educate parents about different parenting skills while also showing what those skills look like in real life. So for example, the video that you're watching right now explains why it is important to play board games with children. We illustrate specific things parents can do and say during the game in this video. And then on the right-hand side, it's a short parent article about various learning skills that are important for school. And most importantly, this article is very short and it should take parents less than 2 minutes to read. So it's easily, it's more easy to digest by the parents. And then for ready-to-use materials, compared to teachers, parents are much less likely to create materials on their own. So they also appreciate ready-to-use materials. So these examples that you see here all came from the school transition box sets that I developed and distribute territory-wide. So I will use the timetable, the blue one here in the middle, as an illustration. So to ensure that children's daily routines include a balance of learning, rituals, free play, exercise, and also parent-child activities, we developed this magnetic timetable with different colored activities. And parents were encouraged to create a healthy, personalized timetable together with their children using these colored magnets. So this one is quite popular. And on the left-hand side, these are all executive function games that are quite simple, fun, and interactive for parents to use them right away with their kids at home. So these materials are all ready to use. And then finally, for parents, micro interventions can be very helpful because they are more likely to increase retention than long training sessions. So in the parent training program here, this is a video-based training program. Parents watch one video each time, and then we have a host, an adult host and also a child host who will demonstrate the activity and invite the parents and children to practice in the video. So they don't have to prepare anything. They just have to watch and they just follow us during those 20 minutes. So parents, this is quite well received by the parents because it's easy to follow. And this program is actually an evidence-based program that we have published in a peer-reviewed journal. And with the evidence we have, it is now available through our free app for parents. And finally, again, this is similar to what I said, they have to be ready to use, they have to be easily digestible because for parents, they don't have much time. So in this parent training program, this is longer than the video-based program that I just shared. It's 12 weeks long. That is currently ongoing. And in this particular program, parents watch one video per week, and then they complete 2 additional activities at home. For each of these activities, they will not be longer than 20 minutes. And throughout the 12-week program, we invite them to come back for a parent workshop to coach them on the skills and to collect their feedback, and the retention rate as a result is great for this project. So again, the underlying idea is to avoid overwhelming parents and make sure that our findings or the program that we design from our findings is realistic to manage. For media engagement, I often accept interview invitations from radio, TV, and print media because they provide opportunities for me to influence how the public understands topic related to parenting. So on the left, those are the occasions that I was being interviewed on TV. And then even when I'm not contacted directly about my research, I proactively write news columns like the one in the middle and conduct press conferences to ensure the findings are communicated and to advocate for policy change. And with media engagement, I think it's more likely that your research will be used by a wider audience. So for media engagement, here are some specific tips I have for you. So in your message or communication, I would encourage you to try to include, some myth versus evidence segments because they can help correct simplified public beliefs and replace them with accurate evidence-based understanding. So for example, one common myth we have about school readiness is that, it's mainly about hard skills like letter knowledge, reading ability, or about worksheets. And then we can share with the public that, school readiness actually depends on foundational skills such as socio-emotional competence, self-regulation, and learning attitude. So myth versus evidence-based segments usually would attract more attention in the media. The second tip is to use public-friendly narratives. Instead of using very technical terms related to your research methods and your findings, try to explain with real family routines or everyday incidents, such as, what a ready versus unready child looks like when experiencing the school transition, because this helps readers relate to the message more easily because they have, their real life experience. And then I also recommend that you quote directly from your findings using layman terms as explained before, but without overstating your finding. Because a clear, careful message can help families and decision makers apply the findings more appropriately. So an overstated example would look like something, if parents read to their children, they would definitely improve communication skills. So this is overstated because you are saying that if you do something, you would definitely see improvement in something. But an evidence-based, carefully worded example could be, parents who read more with their children are associated with stronger communication skills. So this is more accurate, especially when you employed a cross-sectional design and you cannot confirm the cause and effect relation. And finally, policy relevant messaging means presenting your findings in a way that decision makers can translate into actions. So you're not just informing them that a result exists. So instead of saying reading at home improves language outcomes, try to also provide some actions for them by saying, because of this finding, it shows that investing in scalable family-based reading support, such as parenting programs or community libraries, would be helpful. So they know where to invest their money in. And finally, to many of you, you may be more interested in getting your projects funded. But the key message I want to deliver today is that when you are able to demonstrate the impact of your prior research through your dissemination efforts, the likelihood of your work receiving funding in the future will be greatly enhanced. So most funders, from my experience, want to see a clear impact pathway, showing that your project will achieve. I will not go into the details, but here you will see an example of the short, medium, and long-term impact using my video-based executive function training program. So I would encourage you in your grant proposals to try and articulate your impact pathway very clearly, as it gives confidence to your funder that the impact can likely be achieved. Funders also want to know if your project can grow beyond a one-off study, so scalability matters. If your past dissemination efforts demonstrated that other groups were also able to adopt your model or that demand exists, that becomes even stronger evidence that the work is worth scaling and therefore worth investing in. Okay. And then partnership readiness is also crucial, and this is often overlooked because implementation it's rarely possible without committed stakeholders. And funders often look for signs that schools or communities or other relevant organizations are not just interested, but they are prepared and committed to participate from the early stages of your project. And if we're able to show that to your funder, it will reduce implementation risk and makes the project more credible to them. And finally, a good measurement plan is important because it directly affects funding decisions by demonstrating accountability. So funders want to know that you can track both implementation, the fidelity of your program, whether you can deliver the program as intended, and whether you can track your outcomes, what changes are there for children, parents or educators, whoever, the participants are in your project. So make sure you have a good measurement plan to show your funder. That's all I prepared to share today. I know it's very short, but I just have a final note that my work is based in Hong Kong, which is a very small city compared to where many of you are. We have high population density, and the school community here, it's actually very closely connected. And as a result, some of the strategies I use can be highly, context specific and may not be directly relevant to your local context. But I hope that these strategies I shared can inspire you to develop other initiatives that are suitable for the stakeholders in your community and maximize your impact through effective dissemination, which in the long run, hopefully can strengthen the likelihood that your projects will be funded. So thank you very much for listening, and feel free to connect after this sharing. Over to you, Lishan.
Okay, thanks, Eva. So, I can see myself, sorry. So, it's very interesting to see like what Eva shared about like what programs you developed and the work you did in Hong Kong. So I think from my perspective, I'm probably gonna talk more from my personal history of how to get into the community and then to partnership with community members and then targeting both teaching, research, and dissemination. So I think it's more from like thinking process for me. So my research focus have three lines, and then I see that as my basic research focusing on emotion socialization in specific contexts. So I look at how families and schools and peer relationships and culture influence emotion regulation and social emotional development of children and adolescents. So I also do research from the biological perspective and look at how physiological processes during affect dynamics, how when two people interact. So how they show emotion to each other, how one respond to the other person's emotion, and then along when they are doing this interactions, and then how does the behaviorally and psychophysiologically processes how does that going on? So then I really want to really translate these work and then into practice. And then this is probably a lot of us as a researcher and get a lot of questions from the community. So you're doing a lot of interesting work, and then this is very useful to parents and to families. And then can you talk to us and how we can use your information you learn from your research, and then how does that can actually benefits us directly? So then my third line of research really focuses on how we can actually turn our research into intervention programs, and then how can we can do evaluation of our programs. So that's like the three main lines of my research. So I want to share with you guys and how I actually get into this. So I think many of us do not actually have that plan in mind at the very beginning. So I want to actually get into the field and then talk to the community and then actually do our work in the community. We probably all from a more kind of like academic environment and then just fresh graduated and then it's the public is actually probably a little bit far from us. So then how we can actually get into the field. So that's what kind of my story here. So one of the key things that I want to emphasize is really the engagement. So how we actually engage with community. So I think I can talk from three perspectives. So one, starting from talking, the giving parenting talks to community members, and then also partnering with our NYU Shanghai Community Engaged Learning Office, so which actually partner with community organizations and then actually sending students and then at faculty's courses, and then we actually send the students out to work with community members. So that's actually gives us a lot of opportunity that we can actually make the connection with community members. So the last thing I want to share is how we actually can use these opportunities and turn that into research opportunities. So I think the key message, the key word here is really the community engagement, how we actually engage into get into this. So probably we all went through the COVID years, right? So then at that time, and then we get a lot of opportunity to being invited and then to talk to when everyone's in trapped at home, and then with the children, right? Young children, especially young children, and then sometimes adolescents as well. So then I got a lot of invitations and said, can you give us a parenting talk and then to the urban families in China. And so the Education Bureau of Ningbo City, Zhejiang Province, they invited me to give a couple of parenting webinars. So I can talk about how to actually maintain a good parent-child relationship and then how to do the communication at home when you are all trapped in the same room and how can navigate these opportunities. So then you get to know people and then you actually gain experience and how to actually turn into academic language to like public language and then that the families and the parents and children can understand. So that's actually a lot of like practice for us as well. So, and then I also partner with Sunflower. That's another NGO, non-governmental organization in Shanghai, serving migrant families in China. So then they also invite me. So we have a lot of relationship with them. So there are a couple of other projects with them. So then they also invite me to give face-to-face workshops to migrant parents. So they all move from rural areas in China to urban cities like big cities, metropolitan cities like Shanghai and Beijing to work. So then that's another opportunity. So there, you are now facing a very different group of parents. So not urban family, rich, affluent families, but then more migrant families that are facing different challenges. They have different problems at home. So then that's another layer of like you got invited to these different places. And then also I've been invited to give talks to kindergarten teachers. So we all under a lot of pressure and then we are very stressful. Our work's very stressful. So how can actually balance the work and life? So then you can these opportunities, then you can really talk to kindergarten teachers, school teachers, and then community families and parents. So that's the start of what I've been doing, like when I moved back to China to work in Shanghai. So then my teaching opportunities. So, for example, we also give talks to like trainings to based on my work on social emotional learning and intervention. So, being invited to give talks to the leadership and then teachers from the China Welfare Institute. So, they have a partnership with NYU Shanghai. So, they actually ask us to develop a series of different courses for them. So, then we have the opportunity to, I was like really honored to like really input this social emotional learning to a series of other talks. Like now, like they're interested in AI, involving AI to school teaching, to classroom teaching, and then other perspective. Then I feel like this is very interesting very important for our community teachers and schools to understand social emotional learning and social emotional development. So then I have the particular component for them, and that's actually very welcomed, and then people love that a lot. So a second open course that I developed with our university is I also teaching a parenting in contemporary China course this semester to the public. So the public can actually enroll and then we can teach them. Then like this teaching is very different from university undergrad teaching, right? So you are now facing a group of parents and then sometimes can be there are also teachers in schools and then parents in the community, and then also sometimes educators in the community. So they are interested in understanding parenting in a modern China in a contemporary time. So that's teaching opportunities that actually also help me to get connect to the community. So and then to my um, research work. So based on these experiences and talking to the community, then people get to know me, right? So they have need like they see things from like WeChat articles and then from the internet. Then they some more organizations may actually approach you. So, for example, Sunflower is the one that we worked a lot with. And then Shanghai United Foundation also approached me, and they have programs in different places. So, one of the things that I've been doing for my course in the spring, which is an emotional development course. So, I actually took my students in my class to the community serving the migrant families in a very suburb, almost a rural area of Shanghai. So it took like 1.5 hours to go there. So then my students actually that we designed a library project for the community. So we want to actually ask our students and then to curate a list of books and then build a library for them. So and then think about how can you build a library system, the borrowing system, borrowing and return, and then how we actually can encourage the kids there in the community to actually use the library and then to enjoy reading. And then also think about a sustainability plan and then how can actually make this sustainable. So then throughout the whole semester, so we actually visit the community site a couple of times. So we develop small activities and the students actually doing the activities. You can see from the pictures below, you can see our students and then pairing with the kids and then at different ages. So we have kindergarten group, we have primary school group, and we have adolescent group. So then they are different students actually are working with different children of different age at different ages. So then they can have different activities and then library books based, books related, and then encourage them to read and then how to read a picture book, for example, to the kindergarteners. So then through this type of things, and then you can actually strengthen your relationship with the community sites. Then you can do a lot of things with community. So that's from the teaching, so you can also get to connect to the community. So I think this is important and useful for young scholars and then thinking about how to actually work with the community and think about doing research with the community. So, and then moving to doing research. So, like based on these experiences, and then you then that tend it may tend to a lot of opportunities that you can do research, but at the same time, you do a lot of practice work. So, for example, throughout my journey of doing research with the community, so in the very beginning, so I actually got approached by some companies that actually they're the agents for social emotional learning programs. For example, like positive parenting, Dr. Mark Greenberg's PATH program. So these companies actually have purchased these programs and they have the right to actually use this in China for profit. So then the very first reach and then connect with some of these companies, and then we were thinking about they asked me to actually do program evaluation for them. So can you help us evaluate these programs to support the effectiveness of these programs they have? But the challenge part for this type of relationship is they are for-profit organizations, and then they have very different goals. And then it's very difficult to see from a researcher's perspective. We want a very strict and then serious design of the evaluation research, the design. And then you get into conflict with them. They wanted something quick. They wanted something easy to do. And then it's very difficult to actually to work with them. So like just to be honest with you, so working with the community organizations and partners is actually not easy at all. So there's a lot of things that we lessons that we learned throughout the process and everything. So the second approach that I did is really reach out to non-government organizations in China. So the in the very beginning when I just came back to China in 2015 and 16, and so at those years, and then it still was a very open environment in China and also in the world as well for LGBTQ plus organizations. So in June we even have a Pride run, a home Pride month that for LGBTQ communities in Shanghai. Um, so then I was interested in doing like mental health work, stress coping for LGBTQ individuals. And then I reached out to these communities and these NGOs in Shanghai. And then they also even have a NGO gathering in June. So then you can talk to them. And then there's one organization that I was really interested in working with. So they actually training school teachers. They have a lot of teaching resources for school teachers to incorporate a lot of LGBTQ related materials. So that's, I feel like this is very promising and very interesting work. So now it's like that. We can also do something among adolescents and then see how they can help accept themselves well, and then can actually have a better school life and then family life at that in that community. So then it actually not easy to work with the NGO organizations at all. So again, so like what I said earlier, so they have different goals, and they like how we can actually um, combine our research and with their needs. So that's actually something like I've been thinking a lot about. So how can we to can kind of like we have a double win, right? So we can serve the community, the NGOs, and then also we can fulfill our own research purpose. So then that always there's a balance that we have to think about and then negotiate. So and then later I got the opportunity to work with Save the Children, so in Shanghai. So they happen to have some funds for social emotional learning in China. So then I seized the opportunity and then to work on that. And then later, based on my work for Save the Children, then I connect to other foundations. So United Foundation, and now I'm working with Sellers Town Foundation. So for working with Save the Children, so it was actually very interesting. So it's really from them. So they reach out to me. So they know that my research focuses on social emotional development for children and adolescents. So then and then I also work with migrant families and migrant children in China. So Save the Children program at that time from 2017 to 2020, they are really interested in doing social emotional development among migrant families, migrant youth in China. So then you see, so that's a really good opportunity. What I've been working on for my research. At the same time, they have the needs from their NGO. So then we work together. So they ask us to develop programs and then social emotional programs for primary school children, and then do the implementation and train the teachers to carry out the programs, and then do the variation for 3 years. So that's the Save the Children opportunity. So after that, and then the NGOs serving families, and then they know my work. So another organization, Shanghai, um, sorry, the United Foundation in Shanghai, so they reach out to me. So they are also doing similar work. So focusing on resilience, social emotional skills, mental health, but focusing on not only migrant families and migrant children in Shanghai. So it's a nationwide. So we select a lot of different organizations from different cities in China. So they have the program. So this time, so we didn't have to develop our own program. So they have program ready. So and then what we do is basically help them evaluate the program. So that's another work that working with the community recently. So then also then another opportunity that as a researcher, as a scholar that we can do is actually we can be a research consultant with these organizations. So being a consultant, they have different work, and they then certain point they may have an opportunity that can provide to you that you can do research with them. So that's another thing that I want to share with you guys. So based on these work with organizations, and then I got more opportunities with organizations. So my later work and then got funded by Cyrus Tang Foundation. So from 2021 to 2026, this is the first program we work with Cyrus Tang Foundation. So again, focusing on migrant youth in Shanghai. So we developed a summer camp program for migrant youth, adolescents in Shanghai. So for the summer, so we have a 10-day, 11-day summer camp. So we have a lot of social emotional modules and then program activities. And then we take the migrant youth to talk to different the career people are doing different jobs in the community. Can be a chef, can be a delivery person, can be people doing music. So we pair our youth to we invite a lot of speakers, and then they doing different job in the community. So and see the youth can see the potential career path in the future. So can to stimulate their thinking in the future what they can do. So we also have a very important, interesting drama classes in the afternoon. So they can actually through acting and performance, and then build up their self-esteem, and then being more confident to talk to people in front of a big group of people. So to actually, this is one of the important skills that for migrant youth. So how to be confident, and then how to be and deal with all these their challenges and then stress in a personal life, like how to deal with school bullying, and then how to communicate to the parents. So there's always a communication issue at home. So in nowadays in families. So that programs actually have all different kinds of components, and then to the summer camp program. One day we also took the kids to Disneyland in Shanghai, so they can talk to people who are working in Disneyland. So people are taking care of the mechanics of these facilities in the Disneyland, and then also people talking to people who are taking care of the plants in Disneyland, and then people who are designing the costumes for the performance and then the plays and the shows in Disney. So then also widen their views, and then they can talk to the different people with different jobs and hear different life stories. So this is the summer camp program. So because of the successful of summer camp program, we develop more programs with Cyrus Tang Foundation. So then the next work we are doing now, so we are focusing on Chinese international students in the US, and also Chinese college students in China. So we using writing as a approach to improve or to take care of our own self, our mental health. So we have a writing for oneself and others study. So we have a randomized control trial to work with college students in the US and China. And then another project that's also because of this work, and then Cyrus Tang Foundation also funded our research project. So we have a longitudinal study of urban families in Nanjing, China. So we have an infant cohort and adolescent cohort. We've been following these families for 20 years now. And then because of our work with Cyrus Tang Foundation, and they were convinced to fund our work because it is very important. And then our research findings can actually easily disseminate and then connect, being very helpful to our community families. So they are very happy with us and doing this work. So, and then recently we also funded by Cyrus Tang Foundation again, and then collaborating with my colleague Lixian Ren from Xi'an Liverpool University, and I think she's also in the audience. So this is go back to my research focus is emotion socialization. So we have a project called Emotion Matters, and then we have so Lixian developed social emotional parenting, emotion related parenting programs with parents in Suzhou with younger children. So then we were trying to scale this program up, and then we want to train kindergarten teachers and then even some other trainers. So we do a randomized control trial to test the effectiveness of the program, and then train the teachers in the community to carry out continue to the intervention work. So then, because of the previous experience with the community, and then you get to talk to the community, you bring students to teach in the community, And then you also then it relates to it build up to the opportunity for doing research with the community. So I think that's my journey all the way for doing the research. So at the end, I want to share a little bit about the media coverage. So because of the work and then our university communication office, they actually want to write up articles about what our work, right? So I will encourage everyone to spend time with them, to sit down with them, to talk to the people in your university so you can actually talk about your research, talk about your work in the community, and they can write that into articles. So then you get more public view, then more people will actually know what you are doing, and then they can reach out to you. So that's one opportunity. So another opportunity is also through academic communities. Like for example, SSCD have Asian caucus, so they have a caucus member spotlight. So they can actually feature our work and then discuss our work and then our even sometimes our life journey on online, so people can see that. And then as a researcher, and then you also get approached by news media, right? So they very people very interested in parenting. They're really interested in mental health work. So they're gonna reach out to you. So and then take this opportunity as well, so you can actually disseminate and talk about research findings, the importance about parenting, importance about social emotional learning. So and then more people can reach out to you. NGOs can see that, and then any other foundations may see you. So that's another like very important thing that the not only just through media we disseminate our findings, but then we also actually get more opportunity to work with the communities. So that's everything I want to share. So I think we have time for some questions and then discussions.
Thank you for these very inspiring talks. I'm so impressed by hearing all of this. I want to just highlight a few things and then let's open it up for questions. Adam Winsler put in the chat a call for paper, Lab to Life, and it looks like it's a special issue in child development on really exactly what Eva was talking about for educators for early childhood education. So please look at that. And then Patrick also put in the chat that the recording would be on YouTube. So, and there's the ISSBD YouTube channel. But please put your questions in the chat or feel free to unmute and ask a question. I'll go ahead and just start. Oh, I see Pam. Pam has her hand up. I'd love to hear what Pam's question is.
Yeah, thank you so much for the two presenters. What you've presented is just awesome because it touches on most of the work I think the people in this call are doing. Like it really touches on my work. I just have one comment. I think I can turn it into a question for Eva. Now, Eva, you work a lot with teachers, eh? And in my experience here in Kenya, I'm from Kenya, by the way. We are just rolling out a new curriculum. And this new curriculum we are rolling out has a very strong components of values teaching, which our previous curriculum did not have. And this involves a lot of, it has also put in a lot of more work, more activities. The teachers need to do much more to, actually activate these values teaching. And working with teachers, we are always looking at ways of not really intensifying their work more by the kind of suggestions we give them. For example, at this time, we are suggesting to the teachers in my project, we are suggesting to the teachers that they need to have a component of home visitations as possible, and they don't have assistants. So my question is that in your research, do you at times get such kind of scenarios where the teacher said, okay, fine, this is excellent, what you're suggesting is excellent, but I'm really struggling to find time to build it onto what I'm already doing, because what I'm already doing is already taking almost all the time available to me? Yeah.
Well, thank you, Pam, for your question. I don't research on, what would be the most effective processes to work with teachers, but from my experience, I did have some similar encounters as you just shared. So I think, first of all, most of the teachers enroll in our teacher training program or to trial a new curriculum because the school leaders want them to do that. The school leaders may be the one who know the possible impact of your work on their teaching and on their students. But I would say that you need to also make sure that the teachers know them. So that's the first thing, make sure that you let them know this is evidence-based and how it will help your students and how it will help you. And then, it sounds like you have been doing it for a long time, and now you're adding some new components to your project. And I would want to encourage you to make sure that you do some pilot study or pilot training using the new component that you are going to implement, so that you can also gather some feedback from the teachers to enhance it. Sometimes, you may not be able to make a lot of changes, but if you take the feedback into account, if you ask them about their opinions, they feel like they have been heard. And then if you tell them, how you have used their opinions to reshape some of the things that you do, then it will make it easier for the teachers to participate in your project according to your objectives. And then finally, as I have shared in my presentation, I think it's also very important for you to think about, you mentioned that they do not have a teaching assistant or other supporting teachers to help them. Would you be able to provide them with the materials they need before the home visits? For example, do you have questions for them to ask, easy to fill out template for them to complete? I don't have much context about what you actually do, but I would encourage you to think of some additional measures that you can provide to the teachers to help them make their work easier while they're trying out these new initiatives. So I hope they are helpful to you.
I have a question. I would like to know, we have a number of early career scholars on the call, and it's amazing to see what you all have accomplished over, your careers, but how do you get started? What would be the first things to do if this is really important to someone in their career to disseminate their work? How do you get started?
I can start. So I think I'm more kind of a junior person, mid-career. So I think at the very beginning, it's really you keep that open, right? So as a researcher and then come back to work in academic environment, and you never thought about like you're gonna like really do this dissemination like by ourselves, right? So we do this like by publishing articles and then do publishing books, and then even not publishing books because sometimes not a lot of university can take that as your or your promotion, like one of the materials that can help you for your promotion. So always like keep that mind open, right? So because the nature of our work, so we focus on parenting, we focus on social emotional development, which are closely related to the public. So by nature, there's a strong and indirect connection to people's interest. So we can take that. So then take any opportunity that you're being approached and invite you to give a talk to parents directly. So, and then that's the beginning of my journey. Like you get to know the parents. So then you get to know the organization who invited you. So then from that, and then you can develop to something else. So you probably don't know what that will be, and then later on that you'll find out something will come along the way. So that's how I do that. So one thing lead to the other, mostly.
Yeah, I agree with Lisha. I focus on parenting as well. So naturally, this is something that a lot of the audience in the public are interested in. So to me, because, really, I don't want to stay in the office and work whole day. I want to talk to people. I want to connect with people. And then when you see the feedback from others, from the parents, from the teachers, it's really encouraging and it made me more motivated, to do more work that could have a real world impact on the families and children. And I think it's also helpful for us because when you talk to them, when they give you feedback, um, you actually develop more relevant research questions for your projects in the future. So I think it's a really a very dynamic and bi-directional process to me throughout the journey. But one thing that I would encourage the early career scholars is don't overdo it, because in your early stage in the early stage of your career, you need to focus on acquiring grants. I mean, in Hong Kong, at least, we need to, obtain grants, and then you need to have good publications, good number and good quality of publication. It could be already very stressful. So, but you bear in mind, every time when you write an article, every time when you design a new project, think about the possible impact, the implication of your findings and your project. Then, in the long run, when you have collected, some evidences of what you can inform practices, then slowly when you roll out these dissemination plans, you will receive good feedback, and then in turn you will get more invitations to share more, and you would develop these strategies that I just shared with you naturally along the way.
Yeah, and I want to just add, I really, Lixian, involving students and how I thought that was such a wonderful way to, like you said, it was a win-win, right? Can you say a little more about that?
Yeah, so because of we have a community engaged learning office here actually can support our teaching. So we actually have a tradition of bringing the students to the community. So we actually take the students and travel around the world. So like that's basically what we've been doing. So and then you can basically develop those community components to your course. So I've been teaching parenting and culture. I've been teaching emotional development and developmental psychology. So we can actually have a community component to that. So we can partner our students with, and say, take them to the community and talk to the parents of like a migrant children, and then take the students and then to the kindergarten teachers, and then we can also look at the needs, what just Eva just shared. So that's a double kind of like it's a bi-directional thing, right? So we look at the community needs, what they want. So and then we can actually ask our students to build the project around the needs and then to fulfill the needs and then make that something like rich, very important to our students learning as well. They get to know people from different communities, different classes. Like, NYU students you can see it's a private university with a lot of rich students from very rich backgrounds. So then they can get to know the world, see the world, and then see people living a different life and then people from different classes. So that's actually a very important experience to our students as well. And then you can definitely build, like think about research ideas, and then like it stimulates our ideas of doing research. Yeah.
Okay, this was a fabulous webinar. I'm excited to see some of you at ISSBD. And Patrick, do you want to put when the next webinar is in the chat, or do you have any announcements?
Yes, I am doing that right away. It's going to be on June 1st. I've shared details on the chat. You can read more about what's going to happen in the next webinar. And thank you so much, everyone from all over the world, for attending this webinar. We really appreciate you waking up early or staying up late to listen to the wonderful presenters. Thank you so much, and I wish you all a good day.